Okay, our first speaker is Gillard from Shropshire. He is part of the Defend Our NHS campaign. He has a train to go back at 8:15. We have kept in touch with the Shropshire campaign, who have been an inspiration to us. He will explain to you how they have won their campaign to maintain A&E services, which is a great inspiration to us. And we're trusting, of course, that we will be able to learn a great deal from them. Pete Gillard from Shropshire.
Thank you for the invite tonight. I think the last time I was in Huddersfield was about 40 years ago, so I don't remember it very well. Problem of age, you don't remember. Not quite right to say that we've won, but they've lost. And that's because they will come back again, and we know that. Let me explain what happened. 2 or 3 weeks ago, I don't remember exactly how long, the Shropshire Clinical Commissioning Group public board meeting voted not to approve the hospital trust plans for closure of one of the A&Es. We have 2 A&Es in Shropshire, one in Shrewsbury and one in Alfred. That in itself is remarkable. What's even more remarkable was the vote on the CCG board. The chair and the chief officer voted in favour of the proposal. All the other executive directors abstained, and all the GPs and the Director of Public Health voted against. Even that doesn't explain the whole thing, because the proposal itself was created initially by Shropshire CCG. It was their programme. So what you've got is a programme that CCG initiated has been stopped in its tracks by that very same CCG. And I think what I was asked to talk about is how we got to there. When the plans were first announced, I mean, you've been campaigning for some time, we've been campaigning for over 2 years. They produced lots of glossy literature like this, saying that this is a plan for improved healthcare for the next 25 years in Shropshire. There was going to be a brand new hospital. All sorts of things were promised to people. And to be quite honest, people thought, wow. And initially they did not say, and they still haven't said yet, which of the 2 A&Es they planned to close. We had 2 A&Es. One was going to go, but we're going to get a spanking new hospital. All was going to be fine. Myself and my partner, and I'll say this because it was 2 of us, there was no upsurge in anger around it in public. Myself and my partner, who had just retired from London, had spent a lot of time campaigning in London on health issues, and we read between the lines and we could see it meant a cut. It was actually a cuts programme. So we started up a campaign. How in that situation, where there isn't public anger initially, you start a campaign? First of all, we have to recognise what Shropshire's like. In the area covered by the 2 A&Es, we have 6 Conservative MPs, none others. No other MPs. 6 Conservative. The area itself covered is around 2,150 square miles. So it's not exactly easy to get people together. We're not looking at, there's no history of campaigning, it's very diffuse, etc. So initially, basically, what we were trying to do was get the message out. We went anywhere. They had their initial engagement event. So we went to every single engagement event we could find anywhere, found people who agreed with us, and that became our initial mailing list. We built up a whole range of people from all over the county in order to be part of the campaign. Petitions, occasional public meeting. We haven't had any demonstrations, but we made sure that people knew what was happening, and we got together the initial group of activists across the county. From our start, the campaign had one theme. We want to win. An old friend of mine, Alan Waters, some of you may have known from Defend Council Housing, once said to me, anytime you go into a campaign, don't go in to protest, go in to win. And that has always been our theme. So we thought, how are we going to win in this sort of area? First of all, we had to win public opinion. So we did lots of work around that. I explained that. We used social media. When we announced on our social media that we won the vote at the CCG, our Facebook page had over 30,000 hits in 24 hours. Which for Shropshire is remarkable. That was 80% we know from in county. we started talking to parish and town councils. It's paid off. My partner, the chair of the campaign, is getting a civic award from London Town Council tonight. Tomorrow night we are speaking at a debate with the Chief Officer in Oswestry, organised again by the Town Council. We've been working with all the local authorities around there. The press, hostile press initially, dismissed, if they covered anything, would dismiss it. Basically wouldn't allow us to have our press releases just went into a black hole straight away. We've changed them round because we showed that people agreed with us, and the local press has started to change. We now can we had a meeting with the editor and complained. We're very lucky, actually. We've got 2 national journalists who happen to live in Shropshire who came into the campaign and are running our press for us now, and that makes a big difference. But now we've got regular contact with the BBC and ITV television from the West Midlands, do regular broadcasts there, the Shropshire Star, the health bosses paid for a 4-page supplement a couple of weeks ago. The next day the Shropshire Star ran an editorial attacking them for wasting money on their marketing campaign. So we've actually shifted that. And it's not because we proved we had people behind us, but we were able to give them stories that they couldn't get anywhere else. Because one of the things we do have is people from the local health economy, the local hospitals, doctors, nurses, etc., giving us stories, and we actually get them into the press rather early. That's one part, getting the public on our side. And we've had a very simple slogan: closing an A&E kills patients. And that was important to us. In the end, we recognised it's about money, so we put real pressure on the politicians in Shropshire. Now, the 6 Tory MPs would prefer it if we'd go away, but they can't do that because we've had Conservative Party members, including officers of the Conservative Associations, taking around our petitions. They can't just dismiss us, but we're putting real pressure on them because at the end we know we're going to need to get extra funds. Our campaign will be going on because we've managed to delay them for a year or so. So our formal consultation doesn't take place until January to March next year. So after 2 years, we're still campaigning, etc. And that's at the same time, just before the local elections. We're going to make sure the NHS is a local election issue for our councillors. The other thing we've been doing, which I think is important, we haven't just been campaigning about the A&E. We've won. We've won some small victories on the way. We found out they had secret plans to close one of the A&Es as an emergency over this winter. We publicised it and effectively stopped it. They planned to put our out-of-hours GP service, which is run by the local GPs, out to tender. We publicised it, got a mass campaign going, and stopped it. They now agreed not to defer anything for at least another 3 years. We've got some victories on the way, which I think quite important. But really what I want to talk about at the end is something which I think is probably we found very, very important for us. Luckily in our campaign we have a number of clinicians, mostly retired because in order to be public, it was a bullying in the NHS. You tend not to keep your jobs for very long. So we've got retired consultants, retired nurses, etc., etc. And that means we've actually been able to tackle the health bosses on their own ground. You know, they were using all the time. We don't have enough consultants for the 2 A&Es. We need 10 at each. That's the Royal College of Emergency Medicine says that. So what do? We contact the Royal College of Emergency Medicine, talk to them, and they produce a nice fact sheet which basically backs up our case. And the health bosses have now stopped talking about the Royal College of Emergency Medicine because they're now backing us. Something which can be used here. I'll leave a copy afterwards. So we're able to do that. We produce documents, rigorous academic documents, but the health bosses, if we write an open letter, they have to write an open letter and reply, trying to challenge our clinical things. We have a mailing list of 450 clinicians in the local area, GPs, hospital doctors, etc. Before any major decisions can be taken by any of the boards, we email them with some detailed arguments about what's happening. That's forced them onto the defensive. And the key thing at the end of this, what shifted it? You see, they're pretending things. The average distance, travel time, to an A&E around the country is 2.3 miles if an emergency admission. You won't be able to see this, but you can see there's only a small green blob at the side of this. This is our area. That's the half an hour distance to an A&E. So what you can see is we've got massive distance problems. We exposed the fact that that was going to kill patients by the increased ambulance times. And the other thing is that we exposed their arguments because what they're trying to do is make GPs take on the work. They're claiming they're going to reduce the hospital capacity because 30% of patients over the next 5 years who are admitted to hospital because of frailty or because of long-term conditions will no longer be admitted because things will be wonderful. The GPs know that's an attempt to get 30% extra work onto their backs. So what we were able to do is convince the GPs that they would not support this. And in the end, they broke with the health bosses. The local medical committee, which is the representatives of all of the GPs, said we're not going to go along with this. They wrote an open letter which concludes, on this basis, we believe it is, talking about the proposals, they are naive to the point of being dangerous. And that was the scenario in which the CCG voted to do it. So we won that. And it was they basically use our material quite openly. The Shropshire Defend Our NHS material is used by the local GPs as part of their argument. So that sort of combination of things is how we've got to where we are. In the end, we know we haven't got a victory yet, because there's still the problem of not enough money in the health service to be able to fund both hospitals. But we've got them on the back foot. We've got public opinion on our side. We've made everything more difficult. We've already delayed them for at least a year, and therefore we are going to move forward, because we believe that if our campaign can do this, other campaigns can also be successful, and the more campaigns that are successful, the more difficult it will be for any government to resist the demands for extra funding for the NHS. Thank you.